You grew up in Chicago, so I guess the blues would have been hard to ignore. Did you remember what it was about the blues that first struck a chord with you?
Well, actually, I grew up particularly exposed to the blues because my father had a store on Maxwell Street, which was a kind of a center of blues activity, especially on Sundays when I spend all day down there, and there were people playing on the streets and street corners and alleys, and that's where Little Walter played, and Floyd Jones, and all kinds of people back then in the late 40s and early 50s. So I heard it as a child. I didn't particularly give it any extra significance at that time because it was just, as I say, the ambient soundtrack to a good portion of my childhood. And then later on, when I heard blues again, it just triggered all that stuff, and I just really went crazy for it.
So, at what point did the harmonica come into your life?
Well, in 1968, I was living in San Francisco, and I was over at a friend's house, and he had one sitting on his mantelpiece, and I just kind of pulled it down and started fooling around with it, and I had an immediate sense of connection with it, and thought that if I put some time into it, I could actually learn how to do something with it. And then shortly afterwards, I went to Europe for 6 months, and actually my friend whose harp I took off that mantelpiece, he told me to take it with me, and I did, and I was, playing it a fair amount, and I started getting some good sounds out of it, and after a while, after about 6 months, I came back to the States, and that's all I wanted to do.
So was there at any stage, was there ever going to be another instrument for you, or it was always the harmonica?
Well, I liked music before that, but and I tried different things. I mean, when I was a kid, I took accordion lessons, and I fooled around with guitars and piano, but nothing really made sense to me. They all required a certain degree of digital dexterity, and the harmonica was primarily an oral instrument, and that seemed to suit me better.
Now, a major break for you in your career was your time with in the Muddy Waters band. What kind of band leader was Muddy to work under?
Fairly laissez-faire, which was good. I think that's the best way to be. I mean, obviously, you expect certain things of your band members, but hopefully you hire them because they've demonstrated that they have what you need or are going to develop what you need, and unless they need specific direction, you pretty much let them do the job, and you've already shown them the trust and the confidence that they can do it. And Muddy was very much like that. He was a very generous band leader in the sense that he was not in any way, shape, or form jealous of his sidemen. Now, occasionally you get that with certain people who feel the need for the spotlight to be on them at all times, where Muddy, he was very secure in his position, and but when it was your turn, if he looked at you for a solo, he'd just lean over and he'd say, "Go get him, son." And that was I think the best way to get the best out of your sidemen.
Do you think that could be one of the main reasons why so many people that have passed through Muddy's band have gone on to be major stars in their own right, that he was very supportive of them in those early days?
Oh, yeah. No, he was very supportive. He hired a lot of great people, but he was very supportive of them and gave them a chance to develop and get some attention paid to them without any, like I say, any jealousy on his part. He encouraged it, although, to a certain extent he paid the price because so many of them went out on their own. But on the other hand, he took great pride in that.
Yeah.
In the fact that he took out a lot of stars from his band. I mean, he was, in that sense, kind of like Duke Ellington, even though, people stayed with Duke for a long time, but the people in Duke Ellington's band made names for themselves. People know Johnny Hodges and Harry Carney and, Ray Nance and all kinds of people, where if you take somebody like B.B. King, hardly anybody can name a sideman that ever played with B.B. King.
That's true. Muddy had a great roll call of harmonica players in his band through the years. When you joined the band, did he direct you to play in the style of any of the players that preceded you, or was he content to let you play your own way?
He didn't really give me any instruction, but the template was always Little Walter.
Yeah.
So, and obviously you can only go so far. You can't be somebody else, but using that as a template for how to accompany him and for certain signature kinds of riffs that accompanied certain tunes, that's what he wanted to hear.
Now, after Muddy, you're in the legendary blues band. Tell us a bit about that band and what your hopes were for that band when it began.
Well, we had some business troubles with Muddy and his manager, and the time seemed right, and we stuck together. That is, at least me, Pine Top, Calvin Jones on bass, and Willie Smith on drums, and we went off on our own as a legendary blues band, and we had various guitar players at different times, Duke Robillard and Louis Myers and Billy Flynn and some other people too. And we just wanted to keep playing music, maybe do a little better for ourselves financially, and have a chance to put our own stamp on things. We weren't really eager to leave Muddy, but it was just one of those situations that developed where that was what was going to happen.
Yeah.
So, and ultimately, Muddy was very proud of us, as I knew he would be.
Yeah. Just the same, was it a strange feeling going out there on stage with those players and without the imposing figure of Muddy Waters out front of you?
Not really. Obviously, we were quite used to playing with each other, and everybody in the band could do some singing, so we kind of passed it around. Each person would be featured for a portion of the show, and occasionally a writer might say that there wasn't enough focus or something because there was no one necessarily dominant figure on stage. But I think the show worked pretty well, and it actually got a chance to expose the talents of each individual member, and of course each guy had his own approach and unique strengths, and so I thought it worked well, and we did pretty good out there.
What prompted you to leave the legendary blues band when you did?
Well, I'd done, after 6 years of Legendary Blues Band and 6 years just before that with Muddy, I was kind of burned out. 12 straight years on the road, at least a couple hundred days a year. I was drinking a little too much, and, the family life was getting a little shaky and all that sort of stuff. So I just decided that the best thing for me to do was pull back, at least for a while. So I did that, and it was probably the right decision.
When did you know when the time was right to step out on your own and start fronting your own bands?
Pardon me?
Was there a particular moment when you decided the time was right now to step out and start doing your own thing with your own material?
I'm having a little bit of trouble with this connection. You're asking me what motivated me to start my own band?
Yeah, but would you know when the time was right to do that?
Well, I kind of settled things down, and the hiatus was good for me. And but I was so used to traveling around, sitting in one place month after month was, actually getting on my nerves. And I miss playing live music, so I put my own thing together, and I started writing songs, and started touring on my own, and that was another difference in experience. That was a little intimidating at first, but over time I got used to it, and I got to enjoy it.
Were you particularly determined to show there was more to you than just being a blues player?
Pardon me?
Were you particularly determined to show people that there was more to you than just being a blues musician?
Oh, no, not really. I mean, the Chicago blues is what I came up playing, what I cut my teeth on, where I made my name, and, I was perfectly happy with that. But, I mean, I could play, a few outside things, and always wanted a chance to do that kind of material. And for the most part, it would have been hard to do with players who played exclusively blues. So when I made my last CD, Down in the Mood Room, I took advantage of the players I had, which were extremely versatile. Obviously, Duke Robillard and Marty Blue on bass, and I wanted to record with horns and do some, some standards, some jazz-inflected tunes. Have one old-timey kind of jug band number in there, and so I was able to do a more eclectic selection of songs, including certain things that I always really wanted to record, like Canadian Sunset and Stormy Weather and Doodlin' and some of the things that are on the Mood Room album.
I believe you are quite a jazz fan. Do you see jazz and blues as two music forms that are closely related?
Oh, sure they are. I mean, the blues is the root of American music, really.
Yeah.
And, over time and through various permutations, the direct connection can sometimes be lost, but it really is the wellspring of American music. It certainly is of jazz, and there's a close connection. I mean, there's a lot of very blues-based jazz, Count Basie, and, a lot of the big band stuff, the Swiss band stuff comes out of blues riffs, and, they're very well connected.
Now, you also worked extensively with Eric Clapton. How did you first come in contact with Eric?
Well, in 1978, as part of Muddy's band, we were Eric's opening act on a European tour that was very successful. And they asked us to open up for him on a 49-city U.S. tour in 1979, which we did. And frequently at the end of Eric's show, he would call Muddy and me out to play an encore with him, play a number or two at the end of his show. And so I got to know him on those two tours and got, started playing with him, at the end of his shows along with Muddy. And, eventually, some years later, he called me to come over to play at the Royal Albert Hall with him.
Now, you would have been involved in many special performances with Eric over the years you were with him. Any standout memories there?
Well, it's odd. I mean, I've been doing this for about 40 years now, and in all that time, the venue that I played most often was the Royal Albert Hall in London.
Yeah.
I mean, I've played there 55 times.
Wow.
Which is kind of hard to imagine, but we would do a fairly long stand, every year with Eric, and then did a couple other special shows with him there. And it's a magical venue. I mean, I played a lot of great places. I mean, I did also play the White House. I played Carnegie Hall and all the big jazz festivals and all that kind of stuff. But the Royal Albert Hall is just really a wonderful place, and there's no feeling like walking on stage there. It's just fantastic.
Now, during your time with Eric, that he began returning to his roots and playing more blues again, do you remember him at the time expressing to you a desire to get back to basics?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the end of your question.
Yeah, during your time with Eric, he did begin returning to his roots and playing more blues. Do you remember him expressing to you at that time that he had a desire to get back to the basics?
Well, I mean, not in so many words. It was just, implicit in what he was choosing to do. I mean, he didn't have to say he was trying to get back to his basics. He was doing it.
Yeah.
So I didn't, question his motives. I was happy to be there.
How do Muddy and Eric compare as band leaders to work under? Are there any major similarities or differences?
Yeah. The major similarity was that they really were very similar as to the way, the dynamic of being a band leader on stage. I mean, Eric had pretty much the same mindset. He chose you because he had confidence that you could do what he was looking for, and he didn't, absent, certain things where he wanted to hear a certain riff or something, and he might give me a suggestion, but basically it was left to me, and he was very generous, especially with me, about giving me space to shine. I mean, I got by far the lion's share of any solos that weren't his, and I got and he would make a point of introducing me by name, which he did not necessarily do with the other players, which kind of embarrassed me, but I didn't correct him on him. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I mean, it was flattering and all that, but it did embarrass me to the extent that I thought, everybody should have been mentioned by name.
Mm-hmm.
But he would, put his hand out there and say, Jerry Portnoy on harmonica, and like I said, I got a lot of solos, and he was very generous in that way. So, from the standpoint of being a band leader, he and Muddy shared a lot of traits. The main difference, not in that regard, but in the, in the peripherals to being on the bandstand, was that obviously Eric was, it was 5-star all the way. The best hotels, the best food, the big paycheck, the packed venues, no matter what size they were. That was
first class all the way.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
it was terrific, and I ate it with a spoon, a large one. You got to grab it when you can, and I'm grateful that I got to see the music business from the top of the mountain, as well as crawling around on my hands and knees on the at the base of the mountain, which is what you're mostly doing in the music business when you're playing blues and you're playing in clubs and riding around in vans and staying in cheap hotels to save money and all that. I had plenty of that.
As a band leader yourself now, what things have you learnt from the band leaders that you've played under that you apply to your bands now?
Well, I'm pretty much I'm very much out of the same mold. I hire the best guys. Some of the best players in the country have worked with me, and I like to hire guys whose playing inspires me. So I've had some, tremendous players in my band, and I let them do what they do because I know, I know that they can do the job.
Yeah.
So I pretty much leave them alone unless, but I would put my foot down if someone's personal habits got in the way of either the performances or harmonious relationships within the band, because it's important to have people, especially if you're traveling in close quarters and being together all the time. It's important that you have guys that get along well, that enjoy each other's company. Otherwise, you got problems.
Yeah. Now, you've put together what many consider to be the ultimate in harmonica teaching resources, the masterclass package. What inspired you to put that together, and tell us a little bit about it?
Well, it was an idea I toyed with for a long time, and I made a couple abortive, stabs at it, and just never really followed through on it. And I had a band, and we had a really great band, and we did a long tour of the U.S., and I got back home, and I hadn't made any money. I came back with exactly what I started with, and I'd been gone for 2 months. I hadn't seen my kids. I had 2 months more worth of bills, and I thought, this is crazy. So I started, I actually disbanded. I just quit the road, and I started doing a lot of private teaching, and I had a lot of students, and I was making pretty good money just sitting in my own living room. Now, I had mentioned the idea of putting together my own instructional package to one of my students, and he said to me that he had a whole shopping bag full of materials like that, and did I want to take a look at them? And I said, absolutely. And he literally brought over a shopping bag with tapes and books and all kinds of instructional aids and this, that, and the other. And I went through the stuff, and I was really appalled at the quality of it. On really every kind of level. I mean, occasionally, you could dig in there and, every now and then pull out a nugget of wisdom or, something of value. But a lot of the things were done by people that really didn't have the qualifications, or if they were good players, the production values and the instructional value wasn't very good. They may have been good players, but they weren't very good teachers. And the material wasn't well organized, and so on and so forth. So that really lit a fire under me, because I thought if it had been done well, then I wouldn't need to do it. But it hadn't been done well, at least not by my lights. And so I decided to try and do something that was comprehensive, that was well presented, well thought out in advance, and having had a lot of experience doing private teaching, not only did I have my own methodology and explanations prepared, but I spent some time organizing it, and then I wanted the production values of the package to be of the highest order. I wanted to do it once and do it right, and I figured if I did that and got it to the attention of the public, then eventually, as I sold a few and more people got their hands on it and word of mouth spread about it, it would establish itself as, the best thing out there, and that's pretty much what happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Is the harmonica an instrument that you still find yourself learning things about?
Oh, yeah, sure. You can never get to the end. Well, first of all, just the study of music, music is infinite. So you can never get to the end of it, no matter how good you are. There's always more. It's just an infinite discipline. The instrument itself still presents challenges to me that I don't know that I can address anymore. I'm not as on fire to play as I was when I was younger, but I still really enjoy playing live with good musicians in front of a responsive audience.
And just before I let you go, Jerry, as you said before, you've experienced the music industry both ends of the spectrum, the big stadium shows, and also the touring around in the bus and everything. What would be your best piece of career advice to a young musician starting out?
My best advice to a young musician starting out?
Yeah.
Have a backup plan. And that's really the truth. Music, or any of the arts, I don't care what it is, whether you're trying to be a writer or a graphic artist, a painter, whatever. If that's your passion, you're going to be compelled to do it. But it's a very mercurial and uncertain way to make a living. And if you want to have the other components of a satisfying life and have a family and a stable place to come home and a home itself or whatever, let's face it, you gotta pay the bills. You gotta make a little bit of money. Now, if you're fortunate and things break right for you, you catch a couple lucky breaks and you work hard at developing your craft or whatever, maybe you can make a living doing it. But it would behoove one to have some fallback skill that you can use even as you're trying to perfect your musical skills, and then hopefully you can make the transition to playing music full time. And also, it depends on to a certain extent, on the instrument you play. Because, playing the harmonica is a very dodgy proposition because it's not a mainstream instrument. It may be, within the blues, but even only in one facet of the blues, which is like Chicago blues, where the harmonica is actually the lead instrument, or the mother of the band, what this band called it. But, if you're a drummer or a bass player, pretty much every band has a drummer or a bass player. Most bands have keyboards. Most bands have guitars. So if you're a versatile musician and can cover a lot of stylistic ground and you're accomplished, you can probably manage to work enough to at least eke out a living. With a harmonica, you're in deep trouble, pal.
That's sound advice. Jerry, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you.
My pleasure. Well, get some promoter to rob a couple of banks and make me an offer to come to Australia. I haven't been there since 1974.
It's been a long time, yeah. You're well overdue.
I am indeed.
Yeah, we'd love to see you here. Thanks again. Congratulations on a wonderful career to date, and we're sure there's still plenty more to come.
All right. Well, thanks very much, John. A pleasure.
Thank you, Jerry. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.